Welcome to Embracing Diabetes. On today's episode, Liz and I catch up and talk about past episodes and what we're looking forward to with future episodes. I hope you enjoy our conversation.
When I was sitting out at the pool, I was re-listening to our first episode, and it just reminded me of how proud I am of us and how we were so excited starting out at the beginning, and now looking back, we have, I think, 25 episodes.
Oh my God, are you serious?
Yeah, because I was trying to find our first episode. I swear I saw 25. Well, the first one we did was October 2022.
Oh my gosh, 25, and that's not that long of a period.
I know. So I'm proud of us.
Yeah.
Anyway, so today we're talking together, and I'll have to do lots of editing with this one. I don't really know where we're going. But
so we can start out. So I can start it out. So it's good to see you, Amy.
Good to see you always.
Yeah, and I thought today would be fun. And you and I've been talking about this, about trying to do another conversation just with you and I. And we've kind of tossed around a few different topics to talk about without anything sort of formal. But one thing that you just called out was just that we have had a lot of success with our podcast, 25 episodes.
It's exciting.
Yeah, and 1,000 downloads, I think, is what we're up to.
Yeah, and so many great guests that I have just loved talking to. I know you have too, but
oh my gosh, yeah.
I mean, it's kind of amazing to look back to see the people and the generosity of people. You know, these are a lot of these are big, busy, well-known people in the diabetes community that take the time to talk with us. And I look back at the list and I'm very proud.
Yeah, agree. I think, and it's been really fun to hear everybody's story and how they've been willing to share so much about their life experience, and then also whatever their area of expertise has been super cool. And how we almost always finish each interview with like, oh my gosh, I just love that person. They're so great.
Every single time we do.
I know.
Yeah, which just, I think, goes to show how the importance of just being connected with people who get your story. You know, that you can be completely have nothing in common except this one thing. And because you share this one thing, it just is really meaningful. I don't know a better word to describe it, but every single time we've had a conversation, I get that same feeling. Oh,
totally.
You know, just being so thrilled and having a hard time holding myself back from jumping in because I want to hear their story, but I also want to say, yeah, no, me too.
Yeah, totally. I do think I spoke recently at our kind of local JDRF, Amidas Type 1 Nation, which was really, really great. But we were talking about, because I think we underestimate this, that, you know, because it was mentioned by a number of different people. I was on this panel and we all had kind of different life experiences, but everyone had type 1 diabetes. Oh, actually, no, there were two pediatric endocrinologists who didn't have diabetes, but it was kind of a nice group. And there were these two kids, twins, and they both had type 1 diabetes. Wow. And you know, their mom was on the panel too. Because can you imagine that? Two twin kids with type 1 diabetes. Yeah. But anyway, they were just talking about how, you know, they spot people with pumps or they hear the beep and they're like, oh, you know, and how they've created this kind of community. We have this group of people. I know tribe sometimes a little bit controversial word to use, but it is definitely like a cohort of people that, you know, we definitely have. Like if you run into somebody, you see them like they've got a Dexcom or a sensor on their arm, and you're like, oh, we have something in common.
Yeah. Anytime I've ever done that, I've had a great reaction.
Right.
From person that I'm reaching out to.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like spotting your people.
Spotting your people
in the crowd.
Yeah. We underestimate that, but it's a shining light.
For an invisible illness. Right. I mean, diabetes for the most part is an invisible illness, and day in and day out, you know, we look okay on the outside and we are okay, but you know, a lot of times we're not okay. I mean, I do remember, and this is a 80s, 90s thing. I'm sure it doesn't happen anymore, but people saying when they found out that I had diabetes saying, but you look so healthy. And well, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. Yeah. Yeah. So how about what's going on with any changes with you with like blood sugar issues or with management stuff? And
No, I would say it's been a pretty trying even to think. It's been a pretty quiet time, I would say. I mean, I haven't really had that too many kind of the exercise thing. I feel like I've sort of sorted, probably because I've been doing it more regularly.
Yeah.
And that just makes it easier. I've cut back a little bit on work, which has been helpful.
Oh, good
So
for
I've
you.
got a little more time to kind of take care of myself in my day because that just was
Good for
not
you.
working out all that well. Yeah, I feel like, our diets kind of changed in the summertime. So it does feel like food is a little bit easier because it's a lot less pastas and potatoes and all this kind of cold weather stuff that we tend to eat in the Northwest in the wintertime, kind of heavier fare that's sometimes harder to estimate with carbs.
Right.
So I feel like that's been a little bit better. I'm going, like I've said, I'm going to the ADA next week, which I can't believe is next week.
Wow.
And I'm super excited to kind of, see what's going on because there's a lot of like new technology that I've seen mostly on social media. Yeah, there's this new pump called the iLet that's been FDA approved. I don't know kind of what that's going to look like in terms of availability or all that kind of stuff, but I'm curious to see that, learn more about the Dexcom G7.
Right. I'm curious to hear what I'm going to just want to hear everything when you come back, but
yeah,
I'm curious what you'll hear about Ozempic, like if that would be brought up in the conversation, just because it seems like that's so controversial right now for people with type 2 and, right? Isn't it?
Yeah.
Am I thinking the right drug?
Well, I would say, yeah. So Ozempic and Trulicity, the GLP-1s. Yeah. So that's, oh gosh, I mean, that's going to be all over the place. It's like a huge industry in terms of medication that you can use for weight loss and diabetes management. And there was a huge shortage because there were all these TikTok videos and movie stars who were using it for weight loss. I mean, there was a piece in the New Yorker about Ozempic face, which I didn't even know was a thing, but people lose weight so fast that they get sort of gaunt and it doesn't feel like that's probably the end goal, but, yeah. And then now there's studies and there's been a number of studies that have looked at these over the years, but using it in people with type 1 diabetes who have issues with weight because it's a big problem in the type 1 diabetes community. Also, I mean, just like everybody, people struggle with weight. So these medicines can be helpful, but they're just not approved for that use yet. So anyway, I'm sure there's going to be hopefully a lot talked about at the meeting about that. Yeah.
Yeah. What else are you hoping to hear about?
Yeah. So so technology updates are going to be good. Algorithms are going to be good. So hearing more about like the tide pool looping that got approved for use and what they're going to be doing with that. I guess other stuff, one thing that I'm really interested in is there's going to be they have these, kind of discussion groups or panels where they're going to be talking about the different, pump algorithms in pregnancy. Cause like which pump do you pick and which do you use basal IQ or control IQ and which should your target be and all that kind of stuff. So I'll be curious about that.
Will they have do they have any kind of mental health conversation like panels, or is it just purely technology?
Oh no, there's a whole there are these different subcommittees in the ADA, and one's about behavioral health and mental health. And I'm sure there are going to be different panels and discussions around that, and they have like a subgroup meeting one day where people who are on that little committee can kind of get together and talk about things also. So, and there's actually, I did sign up for one. Michael Harris is a psychologist here in Portland who works up at OHSU that does a lot in the diabetes community, and he's speaking, and there's a couple of interesting talks about, there's nutrition stuff. I mean, there's so much stuff.
Yeah. And we were also, you and I were talking about, the other day about, speaking of mental health, about social media and mental health, because there's so much in the news lately, so many statistics that show the decline in mental health among younger people is directly tied to the rise of technology and social media and all of that. And you and I were talking about the diabetes online community, and which I still am curious about. I don't know if any of our listeners have any thoughts on this topic at all, but whether how the diabetes online community compares, to because to me, from my observation, it seems like such a positive space for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we know there's always outliers out there, but it seems like the diabetes online social media community is for the majority very supportive and maybe less, I don't know, less competitive than other sites or less judgmental than other sites. Or so I would just be curious to see if that community is different than all the others as far as having a negative or positive effect.
Right. Yeah. I think it's a great question. I think, I try to think about other disease states that are kind of like diabetes, and
Yeah.
it's hard to kind of, think of one that has such a like a moment to
chronic.
moment.
Yeah.
A chronic, like you think about chronic diseases like hyper blood pressure, heart disease, rheumatoid arthritis. I mean, there's all these chronic diseases, but like you don't have to think about it, with all of the decision making that we do
Right.
and the medicines that you have to take and the stuff you have to wear and all of this beeping, just all
Right.
there just really isn't anything quite like it. So it's hard to, wouldn't be able to figure out who you would compare it to. And I think it's like such a helpful community in so many
think
ways because
so.
there's so many people who live with diabetes who don't know anybody else. And
Right.
so there's a way to like meet others and to kind of get information and share
Definitely.
stories. And if you find the right space, I think that's a lot about, just finding the right place for,
Right.
and I think there are so many options that people
Yeah.
can access. I do think sometimes, that we've talked about this too, just the numbers and the perfection
Right.
and the sharing
And all that, yeah.
CGMs and all that, data that shows time and range that, I think sometimes, people are excited because they've done well and you want to kind of applaud that. But I do think we all have this kind of comparing mind where it's like,
Right.
oh, well, I'm not, doing that, and can lead to a lot of shame and
Right.
which is
Instantly feeling
hard.
bad because we don't have the straight line arrow that somebody else is
Right.
thing,
Right.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
love to hear. I'm always hoping that people who are listening will message or comment or something on our Instagram account and just let us know what spaces they go to that have been really helpful for them, or that, that they've found good communities
Right.
online.
Yeah. Because there's a lot of them.
Oh my gosh. Well, and I keep finding just even podcasts. Like I was thinking that would be a fun podcast for us to do, is like not a review of other podcasts, but like recommendations.
Right.
Other diabetes related podcasts.
Oh, that's a great idea. Right. And just like what they each offer and kind of as a resource, like use this one for this, use this one, or think about using this one for that. Yeah. Yeah.
So I just came across a new one this afternoon. I was like, I had no idea. And it was quite good. So,
oh, wow.
I know we should keep a
Exciting.
running list.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she actually, her whole episode was great because she was talking about, she's had this podcast for a while and she's like a health professional and has type 1, and how one of her recent posts was just purely like unedited, vulnerable post about a low blood sugar, episode that she had. I haven't listened to that one yet, but she talked about how that had, got more listeners than any of her other episodes, and just being, shows you that being vulnerable and honest and how much that really can be
helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. Oh, I want to hear about that one. Yeah. So those are things going on for me. What are you reading?
I am in a I have a bazillion books and I love to read, and I'm in a bit of a book slump, which I'm not happy about. I know. I've read so many good ones this summer so far. And I'm excited because one of my favorite authors is Ann Patchett.
Oh, love her.
We've talked about her before
yes.
on here. But I know that Ann Patchett has a new one coming out in August. So I reached out to one of the editors I know and I said, could I review this? And so I should be getting her book any day now in the mail, an advanced copy, which I'm really excited about.
Awesome.
Kind of just biding time until I get that one.
Yeah. Yeah. She's coming actually to Portland to do
no
like an
way.
arts and lectures thing. Yeah. They have these there's a big book community in Portland, and they have arts and lectures where they have 4 or 5 different, like every other month, speakers that come and talk about books. And I think this is just a one-off, but she's totally going to see. So I just read Stone Blind, which was excellent.
I don't
It's
know
the story of Medusa.
Ooh.
And I think I heard about it on the New York Times book review, but it was really good. If you like kind of, it was sort of a humorous take on the Greek kind of myth,
Right.
Perseus and Medusa
Yeah,
and the Gorgons and all this stuff. And there's a lot of humor because they're just such funny kind of characters.
Yeah.
So it was really, really good. I loved it. Yeah, that's the same lady that did. I think she did write Circe.
I love to read at night before I go to sleep, but sometimes I'm so tired that I won't get through a couple pages. But I have found if I'm listening to an audiobook, I can just have that right by my bed with my little speaker and listen to that and listen longer before I fall. Anyway.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. But one final recommendation that I would give people is called You Could Make This Place Beautiful by Maggie Smith.
Oh, yeah. You mentioned that one to me too. Yeah.
So good. It's a memoir, and she is a poet. And so she has a bunch of books of poetry, which I had not known about before, but I have since read her poetry. I highly recommend it. But her memoir it's just this great personal story about her and her husband going through a divorce and, just her journey through that, which obviously speaks to me. But it's really, it's written really well, and it's written in a kind of a different style because it's like each chapter is really short. It's just like these kind of connected thoughts or events that she goes through, and I'm not doing it any justice by my description, but
I know it got a really good review that I read about too. There's 183 holds on 37 copies, so it'll be a while before I get that one. But that's what I've been kind of interested in.
And you would totally appreciate it whether it's not like you have to be going through any kind of marriage issues. Just speaks to a woman's experience,
Yeah. Oh, that sounds really good.
Okay. Well, I'll let you enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah. Nice to talk to you as always.
Nice to talk to you as always.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Embracing Diabetes with your podcast hosts, Dr. Liz Stevens and myself, Amy Stockwell, and music by Noah Mortola. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and maybe felt inspired or informed or less alone or all of the above. Please follow Embracing Diabetes on all major podcast platforms and leave a comment, question, or review. Thanks again. We hope you'll come back for more.